A ball bounces. Coaches shout. Someone really whacks the softball. Teammates cheer. For millions of kids, this is the sound of fun, the sound of sports. And youth sports are where they first learn about teamwork, hard work, the joy of just playing and engaging. But ultimately, for many, that joy doesn't last. Every year, between 60 and 70% of children who start youth sports drop out before they become adults. Sometimes they lose interest. Other times, it's too much pressure. A single bad experience can be enough to turn them away forever. And that really matters, because research shows that kids who stay involved in sports longer not only have a better chance at athletic success, they also tend to have stronger mental health and can develop deeper community connections. So why are so many kids leaving sports behind? And what can be done to keep them playing and thriving? I'm Franny Lazarus, and you're listening to Now at Ohio State. We talk with researchers, innovators, and bold thinkers who look at our world, see what the real challenges are, and create the solutions that people need now. Our first guest trying to answer these questions is Dawn Anderson Butcher. Dawn is a professor in the College of Social Work, executive director of teaching and research for life sports, and a nationally recognized expert in sport-based youth development. She's also been a college athlete and a coach, so she's seen these challenges from every angle. In her conversation with our Ross Bischoff, Dawn explains how sports can help children grow, why so many are dropping out, and how programs like Life Sports are trying to turn that trend around.
Dawn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, could you maybe introduce yourself to our audience?
I'm Dr. Dawn Anderson Butcher. I'm a professor in the College of Social Work here at Ohio State. I also have an affiliate appointment in human sciences, so in sport management, kinesiology. At Ohio State, I'm the co-executive director of our university-wide initiative called Life Sports.
Why do you feel youth sports are so important to the development of young people?
We know that 1 million kids every year in the United States plays basketball, plays football, does track and field. There's a lot of opportunities in sport to reach young people. It's fun. The skills that are needed to be successful in sport aren't just about performance. It's about leadership, communication, tenacity, discipline, time management. Those types of skills and life skills are essential to be great in sport, but also great in life, in school, in home, in your community, and all the different social settings where kids find themselves.
That sounds fantastic, but it turns out a lot of those kids don't stick with sports, right? What are they missing out on? What are the drawbacks to not sticking with sports?
So 35% of young people drop out of sport each year in the United States. So that means of 100 kids that sign up for the basketball league in your community, right? Only 6 of them are going to sign up again to play basketball. A third are done. It's not fun. It's too competitive. They didn't have a good experience with the peers and the coach, and they chose to do something else. And so if we think about that every year, what we find over time is that by age 12, 60% of kids, all of our kids in the United States are done. They're no longer in the game at all. And so it's a big public health concern. It's a good, we think about the mental health benefits of sport. We think about the good, opportunities and out-of-school time structure that sport affords that keeps kids out of trouble, too. It's a truly missed opportunity. Dr. Samantha Bates and I received funding from Nike and Project Play at the federal level and the Susan Crown Exchange, and we did the first ever national coach survey in the United States. We had almost 12,000 coaches across the United States. What we found from the data were very, very interesting. So one of the questions was, as a coach, what drives your practice, right? What's the most important values you bring to whatever sport you're coaching at whatever age, whatever developmental level, whatever competition level? And we gave them a list of like 14 different things. So one of them would be a role model, continue to give back in the sport I love, teach skills to young people in the sport, give back to my community, right? continue playing the sport I love. And then one of them was win games, right?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so win games, right? So like, so they're 14 though, right, Simon? And they had to rank order them. So it wasn't like pick your, it was like put them in order from 1 to 14, the most important to the least important. And we ran the data around winning games. And what we found is the coaches of 5 to 10-year-olds, kids 5 to 10-year-olds in the United States, 77% of them value most winning games. 77%.
Yeah.
So we have
at
coaches
that young of an age
of 5-year-olds who are barely able to know what a soccer ball is or catch a baseball. And the primary focus of the coaches that are running those practices and running those leagues and organizations is focused on winning. And it's really backwards, right? Where it should be, focused on skill development, fun, friendships, having a blast, getting the kids, those fundamental motor skills that they can use not just in the sport you're coaching, but in all these other sports that are coming next. We've got parent volunteer coaches who maybe were great athletes and in that sport that they're coaching now, or they could just be parents who are the only one who would sign up, right?
Right.
And have very little sport experience, but know that winning is important or the only important thing. And that's what's driving their coaching practice. And so, we really need to get that back. And so, how do we think about that as a field, right? Modifying and re-engineering youth sport at the developmental level so that it's fun, it's focused on skill development, it's focused on relationships with your teammates, with your coaches. It's focused on coming back the next season because it was a blast and you want to continue to grow and develop and feel great about getting better at new skills and mastering new techniques. And then later introduce, we got to win.
Right.
Is cutthroat, right? Because we're losing 60% of kids by age 12 because of that.
When you really think about it, it's really kind of heartbreaking that these kids will then miss out on these opportunities that maybe they'll look back on and say, I wish I would have stuck with a sport. And maybe the sport itself missed out on a really good athlete.
How many young people could have been great figure skaters, or could have been on the national team for the men's national team for soccer, which we know needs help, right?
Yeah.
That are now exited out because of a bad developmental experience when they're young.
There seems to be two pieces to life sports. There's the youth piece, but there's also a coaching piece. Tell us about the youth sports piece and tell us about these camps and these workshops.
So at Life Sports, we serve about 700 young people every summer in an intensive, what I like to call kind of fifth quarter. So kids are in school all academic year. They get to the fifth quarter and they get 15 hours of play-based social skill instruction. They apply those social skills in 8 different sports where they are learning about how to pass, throw, kick, hand-eye coordination, use the lacrosse stick, cradle, but then also use the social skills that we teach while they're learning that skill. The 4 social skills we teach are self-control, effort, teamwork, and social responsibility. So if you think about those together, they create the acronym called SETS, S-E-T-S. So self-control is how to regulate your emotions, how to control your anger and frustrations. Effort is putting forth 100%, trying your best. If something doesn't work out or you fail or take a risk and don't accomplish that task that you were trying to do, you get back up, you try it again, you continue working hard to master those different skills and competencies that you're trying to accomplish through sport. The T is teamwork, and that's kind of the easy one: communication, problem solving, working together with your teammates in order to accomplish a goal. And then the last is social responsibility. So being a leader, doing the right thing when no one's looking, taking what you learn at Life Sports and using it outside of Life Sports at recess, in the classroom at school, or in your church, or in your community, where you can take these social skills and life skills and use them and help make the situations better where you are in real life. The other part that has developed more recently is the work we're doing in our Life and Leadership series. And this is in partnership with the Ohio High School Athletic Association, OSHA, and a lot of school district partners that we have all over the state. What we're doing in these particular settings is working with high school student athletes on developing different kinds of performance enhancement strategies, whether that be self-talk, it could be imagery, it could be relaxation techniques. We're doing leadership development with them, and we go out into their schools and we work with student athletes, whether it be in their teams or with select team members who then become leaders within their team and take the lessons back into their team and teach others what they're doing. So we have a great example from one of our school district partners where we did a session with their student athletes around relaxation techniques, and we taught belly breathing, right? So if you think about, like, instead of breathing with your shoulders, you breathe with your belly in and out. And we talked about, like, what that would look like if you're feeling anxious coming into a competition. There was a situation where a young football player who had been in the Life and Leadership series left the series and had learned belly breathing. And we learned later that he was in a math class where they had a test about a week later. And apparently he got up in front of his entire class and walked them through how to control their anxiety about this important math test.
That's incredible.
And taught them how to belly breathe, right? And so that action that takes from these interactions we're having through this Life and Leadership series, and then that transfer of it to young people who then become leaders in their classrooms at school or on their teams or in their communities, and begin to be role models to continue to exemplify not just leadership, but teaching others how to do those great skills that we know everybody needs to be successful in life as well in sport. So that's cool. That's a cool story, I think.
That is a cool story.
Yeah.
So that leads into the other aspect of life sports, which is called Coach Beyond. Could you explain that a little bit and the benefits of it?
Gosh, we're having a lot of fun with Coach Beyond. So this is a component of life sports where we really are focused on equipping coaches, athletic directors, sport organizers, parent volunteers, anybody that's working in and around sport to think about more than the X's and O's. But what we're really working on is that other part of coaching that is so important, which involves things like supporting student athlete mental health, teaching kids mental performance strategies, like we talked about earlier, self-talk, imagery, routines, relaxation techniques, so that their mental game is ready in addition to their physical game. We're working on developing leaders, and teaching life skills through sport, kind of like what we do within the life sports intervention. But what are the life skills that we really want to teach intentionally in sport, and then have kids use them in the game, but also use them in the classroom and at home. So within Coach Beyond, we've partnered together with the Ohio High School Athletic Association and school districts all across Ohio. And we've built out curriculum in those content areas that relate to positive youth development. So we have sessions on how to teach leadership skills, how to help your athletes with life skill development, how to support your student athletes and their mental health and well-being, other things like communication, practice planning, basic kind of 101 of coaching. And so we've been developing out these modules, and we have them both in person and online, and we've been taking them out all across Ohio. And so we've trained coaches in school districts and communities all over the state, from way down by the river all the way up to, our Cleveland, Ashtabula area, and then over to Arcadia and our Northwest region. And to date, we've trained now over 27,000 coaches.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Bates and I did a study, and we found that coaches who are trained in life skill development, who are trained in supporting positive youth development and building relationships with young people, creating better team environments, they report that they have more impact on their kids. They report that they win more games, and they also have higher career winning percentages in their coaching practices than those that have not been trained in those spaces. And so there are data that prove that when coaches do this kind of practice that's more holistically charged, it can make a huge impact, not just for kids' development, but also for performance in the sport that they're coaching for their team. Additionally, the other important research that I think sits out there is research that Dr. Samantha Bates has found in this life and leadership work that we've been doing. And she has surveyed student athletes across Ohio in the high school space. And one of the most interesting things that she has found is that 47% of high school athletes report that they would go to a school counselor for help if they needed it. 47%. Again, of course, we want that higher, especially as educational leaders in our state. But 84% of student athletes report that they would go to a coach for help.
Wow.
they need.
Yeah.
So the point is, we got to have these coaches ready and equipped with the skills that they need in order to answer those calls for help, right? Or to give that advice, not just related to sport, but to life. And that's what we're doing at Coach Beyond, is really trying to better equip them, give them the tools and resources that they need, build their confidence and their competence to do this work so that they can understand how impactful they can be, not just at winning games, but in supporting young people in Ohio and across the country. So,
Dawn, thank you so much for being here today.
thanks for having me. It's been really an honor to be able to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing here at Life Sports and Coach Beyond.
For Dawn, the focus is on the day-to-day experience of kids and coaches. But to fully understand the bigger picture, you need data, lots of data. And that's where Chris Knuster comes in. Chris is a professor of sociology at Ohio State and principal investigator of the National Sports and Society Survey, a landmark study examining how sports shape our relationships, values, and well-being. In his conversation with Ross, Chris shares what his research reveals about the changing culture of youth sports, why nearly 70% of kids drop out, and why sticking with sports until adulthood can have lifelong benefits.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Could you start out first by just introducing yourself and what you do here at Ohio State?
Sure. I'm Chris Knuster. I'm a professor of sociology here at Ohio State. I'm also the chair of research for the Ohio State University Sport and Society Initiative, the principal investigator of the National Sport and Society Survey, and my main research areas of interest and expertise are family and sport sociology.
You mentioned the National Sports and Society Survey. Can you maybe explain what that is and how it's been so pivotal in your career?
Sure. So the National Sports and Society Survey is a large national survey of 4,000 U.S. adults that I designed with the help of the Center for Human Resource Research, or CHRR, here at Ohio State, which is our main survey research institution here. The creation of this project arose from a unique opportunity that I had from the College of Arts and Sciences through the Sport and Society Initiative that was just kicking off about 10 years ago. Essentially, I pitched the idea that if we wanted to better understand sports and society, we really needed better data. The study of sport has traditionally been disrespected or ignored or neglected for various reasons, both in various scientific disciplines and society at large. People think about sports as a time of great fun and not very serious and really not worthy of academic scrutiny. Furthermore, a number of academics aren't really very comfortable or really immersed in sport cultures. And so there's a lack of expertise from academics in terms of studying sports too. I was able to work with CHRR and pour my heart and soul into designing this survey over the course of about 3 years. Our three main emphasis then are really trying to get at different dimensions and life histories of people's involvement in sports, both in terms of participation, but also in terms of watching and following. Secondly, as I alluded to, how that's linked to various aspects of their lives, including their family relationships and other social patterns and schooling and friendships and broader well-being and group affiliations and the like. And then also how sports kind of offer some content and also are linked to attitudes about a host of cultural values, things like gender and race and class, of course, but also connected to sport-specific issues and controversies. Who should play sports? And, how should they be compensated? Or what sort of rewards should be granted to folks? How inclusive should sports be? Which sort of rights should athletes have? And so we try to pack all that in. And largely I've been working off of that data over the past 10 years then.
We seem to be such a sports-obsessed culture. A lot of your studies kind of reveal a lot about America, about families and those kind of things. Can you maybe talk about sort of what's at the heart of your research and what are some of the main points that have risen up?
Sports are so prominent and pervasive and influential in people's lives that we need to pay closer attention to what transpires and what people are doing and why it all matters. one thing that is not as commonly recognized that I think our survey and our studies that we've kind of front-loaded in our analysis do is show how what transpires in sports reflects broader dimensions of society, but also provides some unique opportunities, some sites, some things that we talk about as cultural terrain, as academics, for people to work out their feelings about, gender and race, ethnicity, and what is an amateur athlete. And so beyond the kind of broader assumptions and expectations that people might have when they think about sports, how it might offer opportunities to build character or create lifelong relationships or improve health and well-being, it also reflects who we are as members of society, as Americans specifically, and how we navigate various cultural values.
The one thing that I find really interesting about your research is you've kind of looked at the last 60 years and how organized youth sports has changed, especially like the face of it, who's doing it. Can you talk about that a little bit and maybe what it's shown about how we've changed as a society in the last 60 years when it comes to youth sports?
One is this really amazing increase in the number and likelihood of girls becoming involved in particularly organized youth sports. So for the oldest adults in our sample, those born in the 1950s, less than 50% of them essentially reported that they had played organized youth sports. And we saw a pretty steady increase across generations, such that in the most recent cohort of adults, those born in the 1990s, essentially playing youth sports up through 2015, they played at a rate that was essentially on par with boys in terms of being exposed to organized youth sports ever while growing up. About 70% of them did so. The second major theme that we're seeing in terms of what has transpired in youth sports across the past 60 years or so is that the bulk of youth sports experiences are now surrounding more formal, organized, adult-controlled experiences. So we can think about more common informal playground or pickup sport environments for many people for many decades. That seems to becoming largely a thing of the past. And so increasingly, whether we're talking about in the extreme end of things with privatized travel and club teams, or otherwise, just more recreational but adult-controlled and organized and run local community clubs. Compared to years past, youth don't seem to be organizing their own contests, running their own games, playing as part of their own leisure pursuits amongst themselves, but really relying on adult interventions and involvement and expenditures for their youth sport experiences. And a number of people have talked about the relative costs and benefits of each. And when we start tilting too far toward the formal, organized experiences, there's a number of concerns about whether things become more for profit and too high pressure and a lack of kind of ownership and interventions by the kids themselves. A third thing that we have, again, going back to things we've published on, that is a remarkable trend. We have not seen a concurrent rise in the proportion of all youth who begin organized youth sport and stick with it until they become adults. Instead, what the most common experience has been for youth is that they're exposed to organized youth sports. They get a taste of it and maybe play, a year, a few years or whatever. And then they drop out or are forced out or otherwise move on to other things. Right. So we're finding about 70% of people in recent generations who start playing organized youth sports drop out before they become adults, that is by age 18. And so we think not only does it speak to maybe some alarm bells and some red flags, I alluded to some associations with adult mental health down the line, but it also seems to speak to a lack of optimal environments for nurturing and including and presenting attractive and positive youth sport experiences for the bulk of the population.
And your studies have actually shown that those who stick with sports until they're 18 have fewer mental health warning signs, such as anxiety and depression, than those who drop out, correct?
What it suggests is there might be some early warning signs of necessary attention for folks who are dropping out of sports. And some of those warning signs, again, might speak to the sport environment that people are subject to, sometimes with high pressure situations or problematic interactions between teammates or opponents, or sometimes outright emotional or physical abuse by parents or coaches or other people in the sports essentially sphere of influence. Generally, it could be a function of opportunity costs, right? People who drop out then don't receive those sorts of benefits that are expected to be associated with sports. So there could be a variety of things going on, but regardless, it points to a need to better understand and to be especially concerned about the folks who are dropping out, why they're dropping out, how we can offer sports in a better way and provide more positive experiences overall.
You have this wonderful background, not only of sports, but in parenting and sociology. Do you have any advice to parents?
It's really hard, again, because parents generally and individuals as well in society, are really understandably myopic and focused on their individual lives and their own family experiences and their concerns and investments for the outcomes they'd like to see. If we want to create positive opportunities for more people, it takes more than just people investing and being concerned with their own experiences, outcomes. It takes, becoming educated about and realizing and working to improve the experiences of other people, even people who might not be members of your own family or your own community or even your own generation generally. Recognizing that oftentimes, require some cost sharing, some efforts, in terms of volunteering or sweat equity or broader activism towards improving people's rights and opportunities and growth potential generally. Working on nurturing social bonds and positive outcomes and health and well-being outcomes for as many people as possible are really, I think, what we should be striving for and what we're trying to kind of get at in terms of peeling away the different dynamics involved in how sport is presented and engaged in society and how we might be able to intervene and organize and realize sports potential to a better extent.
Chris, this has been great. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
Level up, level up, level up, level up, yeah. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, yeah.
Youth sports are more than just wins, more than just games. They're classrooms, communities, they're potential launch pads for life. But that's only if kids stick with them. The lessons that can be learned, teamwork, resilience, self-confidence, don't come from a single season. Those lessons come from years of growth, practice, and play. Which means the challenge isn't just about producing the next generation of great athletes, it's about creating a culture where every child feels supported, included, and inspired to keep playing. Because when we do that, well, the wins will go far beyond the scoreboard. Now at Ohio State is produced by The Ohio State University. For more information, visit us at go.osu.edu/now. I'm your host, Franny Lazarus. Thanks for listening.